who don't, SSCS stands for?
Santa Cruz Cooperative School.
Okay, I didn't know. Anyway, that's great. Which is obviously an international school, yes? I mean,
yeah.
Fantastic.
I was in international school in Sweden. I was there for 3 years.
Is that a fact?
We can say hi.
Well,
Cool.
we'll give it one more minute. We're up to 182 people. Is that the lovely Mr. Sherman?
Yes, that's a nice audience.
That's my husband and I, so.
Very good. Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
I am greetings to all of them.
Do you want me to change anybody to any of the non-video participants to attendees, or are we good?
I don't think it matters, does it?
No.
I think we're in pretty good shape. So, well, listen, Jessica, I'm going to just turn off my mic. And if you would be able to just welcome people to SCCS, introduce Ariana. And I've got the recording on. So if anybody has
everybody's welcome
to participate, you'll be able to have a look afterwards. So I will turn off my mic. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Great. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming, and welcome to our SCCS webinar guest speaker series. We've had this guest speaker series going for the last almost 9 or 10 weeks, Mr. Ziegler, and it's been an incredible effort on the part of our secondary students who wanted to hear from people all over the world and wanted to hear unique and different perspectives on life and society and history. And so we've had people from all of the different continents, and it's really been an incredible gift. And so we feel very, very lucky to have with us a special speaker that Ariana Bedoya will be introducing today. So Ariana, thank you again for your ongoing role in this process. We're really happy to see you. All of you who are here, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat and at the bottom. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to put any questions that you have in the question and answer session. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Queremos agradecer a ustedes por estar presente con nosotros. Estamos muy felices terminar con nuestra serie de oradores visitantes esta tarde con una persona muy especial que nos va a presentar y va a compartir sus experiencias únicas. Entonces, gracias por estar con nosotros y prestarnos atención. Y si quieren ustedes poner su información ahí en el chat, estaríamos juntos para presentar. Gracias a las comunidades de ACS y AISB por estar presente con nosotros y para compartir con nosotros. Entonces, ahora lo paso a Ariana.
Beautiful language. Is that Spanish you talk?
Yes.
Beautiful language. Very nice. Wish I could understand.
Thank you, Dr. Gilway, for the introduction. Good afternoon to all parents, teachers, students, and friends joining us from all over the world. Thank you for taking your time to share this special moment with us as we meet today's guest speakers, Mr. Ernest Kappel and Dr. Henry Greenspan. My name is Ariana Bedoya, and I'm a rising senior at Santa Cruz Cooperative School in Bolivia, and I will be today's moderator. Allow me to briefly introduce our speakers. We are honored to be in the presence of Mr. Ernest Kappel, a Holocaust survivor during World War II. Mr. Kappel was born in Cayenne, Romania, and at 14 years of age, he and his family were moved to a ghetto and later to different concentration camps. Mr. Kappel lived in notorious camps such as Auschwitz, Buchenwald, and Bergen-Belsen. Mr. Kappel lived in Bergen-Belsen under dire conditions until he was liberated and aided by the British. Since liberation, Mr. Kappel has lived in Sweden, Canada, and the United States, where he currently resides. He was able to rebuild his life and raise 3 children. In the words of Mr. Kappel, it was his health, but above all his hope, that let him survive. We will also be hearing from Dr. Henry Greenspan, who will be conducting the interview with Mr. Kappel. Dr. Greenspan is a psychologist, oral historian, and playwright at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. Since the 1970s, he has spent most of his career interviewing, writing about, and teaching about Holocaust survivors. Moreover, he has written several books and articles of the survivors' retelling and accounts. For additional information on both speakers' careers and lives, we will provide you with links to their personal biographies at the end of the seminar. With further ado, let us start this seminar. Please feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A chat box throughout the interview so they can be answered by our speakers. Dr. Greenspan, you have the word.
Thank you for the word, Ariana. Thank you for that introduction, as I'm sure Ernest also feels. I just wanted to say a couple of very brief things. First of all, your teacher, can I call you Robert? Is that okay? Because my students all call me Hank, by the way, and everyone should feel free. And I realize it's going to be strange for many of you to look at someone who is 3 or maybe even 4 times your age.
I am so jealous of that because I would much prefer just to be called Robert by everybody, but it's simply not done in high school.
Okay, so I mean, in the
Robert.
Robert. Okay. You know, I just want to say, because everyone will hear this, your sound is a little bit, what should I say, kind of flattened, uneven. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that, but you know, this is Zoom world, right, that we're all in. So I hope, anyway, if I'm clear, I want to mainly and initially thank and you all came up with a wonderful set of questions. I think the best I've ever seen. And that goes, as you hear,
I wish I knew all the answers.
Well, you know, these are quite, anyway, you will, but but they're wonderful. And I also say that to assure you that your questions have been noted, and the ones that you sent in, I have tried to condense, and so you will hear not necessarily verbatim exactly what you asked, but a kind of condensation, because understandably, a few of you asked different versions of the same essential question, and so I put them together. But you will hear, so you don't have to worry about resending something you've already sent. However, like any good conversation, there will be new thoughts, new ideas, new questions, new reflections, things you hadn't thought of. That's what makes a good conversation a conversation, yeah? Suddenly you say, oh my goodness, I really want to know this now, because it will go where it goes. So you should absolutely feel free, and Ariana will help me and help all of us get the new questions going as they arise, as well as the ones you've already sent. So I thank you for that. And maybe we can just go. There is no, I'll just say this about, you know, sometimes people think of interviews, whether it's in this kind of interview or in general, as a very formal proposition, very formal situation. The interviewer asks a question, the interviewee, so-called, answers the question, boom, 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 A, B. It's sort of like that, but I think of interviews as good conversations, right? As a flow. You know, and like, you know, in your own life, a good conversation, you really don't know what's going to happen next, because one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. We think of things that we hadn't thought about before. We remember things. We reflect on things in new ways. That makes a good conversation, not just, you know, like a vending machine, put in a question, get out an answer. No. So to the extent we can, even with this technology and being spread out over the world, we're going to try to create something like a real conversation together. Obviously, those of us who you see on screen, but more widely to the extent possible. Okay, so onward to us, power to us, and peace to us. Yes, as health, obviously, in these strange times. So Ernest, you up for conversation?
You up for conversation?
He's asking for any conversation.
Okay, let's,
I'm listening to
Well, let's
everything.
have a good one. Let's go. Let's go. So I wanted to ask first, when you think about from now, your childhood, what are your fondest memories? What do you remember? Obviously, not only is it many years ago, but it's beyond so many experiences during the war, most obviously, but many, many other experiences since the war. What occurs to you as your fondest memories now from your childhood?
Sad. It
Sad.
was sad.
Even before the war?
Before the war, it was sort of normal.
Yeah.
It started in 1944. The Germans started with the Judenrein.
Right.
They want to get rid of all the Jews.
Yeah. And we
And
will,
then it's just hate. You know, that hate is no
Yeah.
good.
so we will obviously talk about that in a moment, but before they came, I'm wondering about, do you even think about how it was to be a boy, how it was to be a child growing up before the Germans showed up?
It wasn't easy. In
Yeah.
those days, there wasn't so many people, couldn't get too many jobs, and it was hard to make a living.
Yeah.
So things weren't too easy. It was hard.
Hard to make a living. The
My
work itself.
parents
Yeah.
were working hard to make a
Yeah.
living.
As I understand it, they owned a farm. You ate a lot of what was grown. It was a little village, yes? I mean, what?
Well, we had a farm.
Yeah.
It helped us with the food, you know, that
Yeah.
we could have the agriculture, the
Yeah.
soybeans and
Oh,
flour.
yeah.
They make oil out of sunflower. They had a press. They pressed the oil out.
Can you still picture in your mind what it was like when you were, say, 10 years old, 12 years old before the war? Do you have an image of what it was like to be in the fields, to be at home, to have family dinner, maybe Shabbat dinner? Are those images still with you?
It was a lot of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Did you have any happy memories?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They said that the Jews to go to Palestine.
Before the war.
Yeah, before the war.
So,
Palestina.
right.
After they had Palestine, they told them to go to Palestine because Palestine was known as a bad place. It was not growing any
Right.
agriculture and stuff. You
Right.
know.
So when you're
They wanted
hearing this,
bad things for them.
yeah, when you're hearing this, Jews should go to Palestine. This is before 1944. This is Romania. This is anti-Semites in Romania. Would you say, are these the official people or are these everyday
It was
Romanians?
it was hurting when they tell you to. They didn't want you.
Yeah.
You go to school with your friends and all that, and they resent you because you're Jewish.
Did your non-Jewish friends
Daniela Palestina.
and your friends who are not Jewish also would say this? I understand you used to play soccer or football with some kids who are not Jewish. Would some of those
Yeah,
kids also?
yeah,
Were they
but
also?
there was some of them. I had to buy friends to give them
Really?
candy and stuff.
And to buy them to be
I had to bribe my friends.
really, so they would be nice. I mean, do I have that right? So that they would be nicer to you and not
Yeah,
hateful?
to want them to get
Yeah.
nicer. There was a lot of anti-Semitism,
Yeah. Hmm.
sadly.
Indeed, indeed. And this goes back. So when did you first realize that things were going to become even worse if I can say it that way, even worse than anti-Semitism, meaning that there was a danger to you,
Well,
to your family.
when I was in concentration camp, and I was just living from one day to the next day. I didn't know what even day it was because I didn't keep track of it because I was thinking of getting something to eat, some food. Survive.
Before the camp, from what I understand, just in your summary, you or your parents, people in your village, were hearing from people who had escaped or gotten out of Poland, where we all know the war began earlier and some of the horrific things had already happened. By 1943, most of Polish Jews were dead already.
Yeah,
right?
people from Poland came to where I was in Romania. They escaped from Poland.
Right.
We found out, we knew what was going on after. There was no place to go.
Did you believe it? Did you or others believe what the Polish Jews were saying when they came to your own town? Or did you think, you know, sometimes
because it didn't take long. We had to wear a yellow Star of David, the yellow band,
right.
just tell us they should know that it was a Jewish people.
Yeah.
We were persecuted.
So you knew from them and what you heard in general that this was a mortal danger. This was a deadly threat.
The Germans, they wanted Judenrein. They wanted to get rid of the Jews.
Right.
Nobody wanted us. They just want to get rid of them. But
so
people, some of them wanted to go to Canada. Canada was a big country. They could accept Jews actually, and they had in the parliament. They had somebody that I forgot the name that he vetoed it. He didn't want the Jews, but
in the Canadian
accept
parliament.
the Jews. They could because there's plenty of room there.
I think maybe we should say this for all of the people listening. There was a famous line when the question of getting people to Canada, and it wasn't worse in Canada than most other countries, frankly, including the United States. But the famous line was one of the guy in parliament, I think you're referring to, said, how many Jews should be taken? His answer was, one is too many. Yeah, you've heard that. That's pretty grim. One is too many. Yeah. So as I understand it, you were feeling already in 1943, 1944, that the danger was tremendous. And did you or your family or others in the community, did they think about any way of escape? Were they imagining any way out? Did they have any hope of avoiding what was coming?
There was no way, no place to go.
Yeah. So how did you, and it's a strange word maybe, how did you prepare for this if you could? I mean, I don't mean to avoid it, but was there anything that you tried to do to prepare for what was coming? Maybe pray, I don't know.
You couldn't do nothing about it.
Yeah. So it was a question of...
Yeah, we couldn't defend ourselves. We couldn't do nothing. We had family and children, and they took us in a ghetto, and the ghetto, they sent us in those wagons where they put
the cattle cars,
the train where they animals there.
Yeah. And let us to chip in, right?
I don't understand the question.
Was there anything that you could do to avoid what was coming?
Nothing.
There is no escape.
Right.
Did you know people that left, that tried to get away?
If you got away, they catch you. They know. They know where you lived, and that the people nobody would defend you, because if the ones who try to save you, to hide you someplace, they were also persecuted.
Did you have any experience in this period? I'm talking about before the deportation or even before the ghetto. Was there anyone who showed any sympathy, even short of actually trying to hide you or do anything active, but even in a look in their eye? Did you see any look of pity, of sympathy, of compassion among the people from your town?
There was no place to hide.
But did anybody show you compassion? Do you have any memories of people that tried to help you?
No compassion.
Right.
But
So
did
really,
anybody try to help you?
Hmm?
Did anybody try to help you ever?
No.
not during that. Okay. This is important to know, right? In our world. So you were moved, deported from your town to Dej, which was, as I understand it, a concentration camp and a transit camp, as we call it, a place from which it was a ghetto, really, yes, from which people were taken by train to the camps. How long were you there in Dej, roughly?
I was 15 years old then.
Right. And you were there a few weeks before the.
Yeah, I was sent to Buchenwald.
But how long were you there?
Hmm?
How long were you there?
In
Buchenwald, I
in the
was
ghetto.
for a short time.
Right. Can you describe just briefly what it was like there? You know, we think of the ghetto, we think of Warsaw because it's well known. We think of walls, we think of wire, we think of guards. What was this ghetto like? I think very different, yes, than what we normally think of a ghetto being like. If that makes any sense. Was it, everyone was closed in? Were there wires around it? Were there guards everywhere?
Yeah, it was electric wires, and
Yeah.
and Auschwitz was electric wires.
And very crowded, I assume. So after a few weeks, you and all the others, I guess, from your town were put on a train. And that train first went to Auschwitz, or in Poland, the town of Oswiecim. Did you know what Auschwitz was? Did you have any idea at that time what it was?
It was terrible. It was just, they selected people that were able to work.
Right.
They sent them to work camp.
Right.
The rest of them, they sent it to
The gas.
crematorium.
But did you know where you were going?
Did you personally?
I could smell the burnt flesh, you know, from the people that they were burning in the crematorium. I could smell it there.
When you arrived?
Yeah, they told us, they just, did see that smoke there? That's where we're gonna go.
Who is saying that? Who were there?
People that were helping to get out from the trains. They knew what was going on.
Right, and they were other prisoners. Yes, they were.
Yeah, but the SS, you know, there was a Mengele.
Right.
He showed you to go to left and right. You know,
Right.
where to the left were saved, and to the right.
Right. Did you yourself go through a selection at Auschwitz? I know you stayed basically one night in a large, like a warehouse barracks, yes? A large holding barracks.
Yeah. We were packed like sardines there.
In that barrack.
On the floor, on the cement floor.
Right. So was there any kind of selection, as you were just describing, from many prisoners where there's a Mengele or one of the other SS go this way, go that way, or was your whole group just taken?
I was in Birkenau, in Auschwitz-Birkenau, just overnight, and then I was to Buchenwald.
Right. So,
And Buchenwald, that's when they gave me the number. I remember the number,
right.
59175 was my number.
On your uniform?
Yeah, here, to show it.
Yeah.
59175.
Right.
Do you remember, did you have to go through a selection? Did somebody tell, I remember you telling me somebody told you to say that you were older?
That was in Buchenwald.
In Buchenwald, they asked me how old I am. I told them I was 16. Actually, I was only 14.
Right. And that was to get, because 14-year-olds would be sent to death?
I was afraid. They told me I should tell them that I was older.
Yeah.
A cousin of mine told me.
That's how he survived.
Yeah.
He didn't survive.
Yeah. Okay. Just so the students know, a couple of people asked about numbers, tattoos. Only people who stayed in Auschwitz for a little while, who were not immediately killed, ended up with tattoos on their arms. So most people who passed through Auschwitz, as you did, which is kind of a horrible way to say it.
Actually, I forgot already all about it. So there was a professor from Michigan State. His name was
Ken Walter?
Walter, yeah.
Yeah, good friend. Yeah.
Walter, he wrote a book about Buchenwald.
He did.
He mentioned about the train that I was from Buchenwald to Bergen-Belsen.
Yeah.
So Walter, he told me about it because I already forgot about it.
Yeah.
But reminded me about it. He wrote a book about Buchenwald.
I do. Ken and I are very close. We're good friends.
Yeah.
We talk all the time.
You know Walter?
Yeah, he's doing wonderful, wonderful work.
Yeah.
But about a specific barrack, we don't want to go too far into deep history, probably for everybody there, but it's an amazing story. And I think what he has shown is how you could be in the same camp, right? In Buchenwald or Auschwitz, depending on when you were there, what barrack you were in, what commando you were in, what job you had, you could have entirely different experiences. And good luck.
I was in Buchenwald for the second time.
Yeah.
First time I was in a Zeltlager. And then after that I was sent to Magdeburg.
Right.
I was sent back to Buchenwald.
So let's talk about Magdeburg a little.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
Okay.
In Magdeburg, if you weren't able to work, that was it. They had, it was called a revier. Revier is a place where you go to get better. What is it called?
Infirmary.
A revier.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'm thinking of the word too. It was a famous one in Treblinka. Anyway, like an infirmary, but people didn't. It wasn't for good health. Yeah.
In Magdeburg, they send you in a place there. They give you an injection if you couldn't work, and they put you to sleep, and that was it.
That was the end of it. I think in one of your summaries, you suggested that the conditions in Magdeburg were still a little bit better in terms of what sanitation, in terms of...
It was terrible.
It was terrible. Okay.
Yeah.
And you were there for several months, 4 months or so, I think. Most of us don't know much about work camps. I mean, slave labor camps is really, I won't call it work camps, I'll call it slave labor, which were killing people, using them up. Yeah.
In Magdeburg, when they send somebody to work, they count every person, and when they come back, the same amount they have to come back.
Right.
If there was somebody missing, they found you. The dogs, they sniff you out, and it's too bad for them.
Mr. Kappel, allow me to interrupt for a moment. We have a few of our viewers wondering about the food that you were given in the concentration camps. So what did they give you to eat? What kind of food ration and the frequency with which you were provided food?
Very little food. They got some kind of a soup, some rubet, what kind is it?
Parsnips?
It wasn't much soup, just a little soup.
How
And
often,
about the frequency, yeah.
how often did you get food?
We got for supper and for breakfast a little bit, a tea.
Did anybody steal your food?
What?
Did anybody try to steal anybody's
Oh,
food to
sure,
get more?
it happened plenty of times. Yeah.
I'm looking at the questions too. Did you have, it's a funny question, could you sleep there? I assume you must have been able on some level to sleep. What was it like in Magdeburg? We have these pictures of
We slept on bunk beds, you know, one on top of the other.
Yeah.
So I was young, you know, they put me on top.
right on top. It's probably the best place, huh? Funny question, but I'm a psychologist. Did you dream at all? Do you remember having any dreams while you were in Magdeburg? Any dreams during sleep?
My
Anything
dream
about
was to be liberated.
which you actually dreamed?
I used to envy the birds. I looked up, I saw the birds and they were flying.
That they were
I
free?
wished I would be a bird.
Yeah, and fly away.
Yes.
Indeed, indeed. So that was, you could say, a daydream in a way.
It's not like I remember a woman during in the 60s. She mentioned that she was in jail because of Martin Luther King. He was in jail, so for her it was an honor to be in jail. She was in jail. So I said, well, what did they feed you in jail? Right away, because I know, I thought jail is like a concentration camp. So she says, oh, they give me some of those Jewish donuts with
Okay.
cream cheese, with cream cheese.
Salad?
Yeah, so I said, oh, that's what they give you.
Jewish donuts. I love it.
So they gave him Jewish donuts with cream cheese.
That was jail. That's a good jail.
That's what they gave me in jail.
It's a good jail. It's a good jail. If you have to be in jail, might as well have bagels.
That's true.
So you're looking at the birds suggests, well, obviously the idea of being free was part of your imagining, part of your fantasy. When you were there, did you imagine that you would survive, that you could be free someday?
I was hoping. I lived in hope.
Yeah. And
A lot of times I didn't know what day it was.
yeah.
I was just hoping that someday I'm going to be liberated.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was envying the birds that were flying. They were free.
Yeah. The prisoners around you, do you think there probably was a variety? Did they also, some of them have a similar hope? Did some of them surrender?
I think
Despair?
everybody has hope.
Do you think?
We don't give up hope.
Yeah. Did you see anyone or know anyone who gave
No,
up?
I
Really?
I don't see anybody giving up.
Really?
We always hope.
Right. Okay. This is a question actually that Ariana wrote in your preparation. Very good question, which was, did you ever at any level believe, well, maybe there is something wrong with me? Maybe that's why this happened to me. Or was it always clear that this was persecution, that this was unjust, that this was horrible, what was done? Was there any, if that's clear, any sense that, well, maybe I am somehow wrong, maybe I am.
I was just hoping, I was living on hopes. I was hoping that maybe someday I'm going to be united with my family.
But did you ever feel that you did something wrong to be where you were at?
Good question, good way to say it.
And I was 15.
But did you ever feel that you did anything wrong, that you, because you were?
I'm punished for anything?
Yeah.
I was too young to be punished. But I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't
So it
do
was
anything.
obvious. Yeah. You're saying you knew this was what it was, which was grotesque,
Yeah.
unjust, vicious, cruel, all the things that we know it was.
For my age, I was tall and I was muscular because we had a farm in a big garden, and I used to do physical work, and that helped me because I was used to it, to work.
So you had
I had to show my hands when the selection was there. I showed them, they could see that I was working.
Yeah.
We had a farm, and I did a lot of work with the shovel.
Yeah. Which helped you in terms of strength and in terms of being able to show hands that had been working hands, manual labor hands, yes, mattered in terms of how it went.
Survival, yeah. Mr. Kappel, we have a question for you from Sharon, and she's asking, what was your job in the camps?
Not every time was the same thing. They counted different, how many people they needed on a certain commando. They called it a commando. And the household was with the wood, and then a different with cement and all different kinds of jobs.
You had to carry cement on your back?
Yeah, the cement, I had to carry it.
Was there any solidarity in Magdeburg, say? What did you have any kind of group, friends, support between yourself and other prisoners? Was anyone looking out for each other in Magdeburg?
All we cared is to get something to eat, to people, because there was rationing. They didn't give us much food.
Right.
Did people try to take care of each other?
Among the prisoners?
The only time we cared each other when it was very cold, and we had real thin clothes, striped clothes, so we gathered together to keep warm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was cold.
The sheer heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we got together.
About that, they were also wondering if you were given any blankets.
Were you given any blankets ever?
At night we had a blanket, yes.
Then probably. Yeah. But otherwise, besides huddling together, did you feel any connection? Was there anybody like a friend, anyone who you felt was looking out for you, or another prisoner, I mean, or a prisoner whom you were looking out for? Any connection like that? As you know, some survivors remember that kind of experience. some don't. So I'm asking.
We didn't have time because early in the morning, they kicked us out of the barrack, the Rouse.
Right.
And they counted so many people and to go to work,
Right.
counted how many go to work. And when you come back, they had to be the same amount.
Right.
If they got killed by overworking and stuff, they still had to be accountable. They know how many people
But
were.
did you have any friends while you were there?
Any connection.
I didn't have friends. But,
You know,
we just looked out for survival.
Yeah.
We were fighting for survival.
Yeah. The famous writer Primo Levi once wrote that when you're fighting to stay alive, you don't think about life and death.
No,
You don't think about those big questions.
no,
You think about what are you going to do next? How are you going to do next? How are you going to avoid the next whip, the next blow, the next hit, the next, how are you going to get the next bowl of almost soup?
just looking out.
Too busy.
Right.
Yeah, does that fit? You're so busy trying to survive day to day, minute to minute, that any larger thinking mostly doesn't happen, that you don't have time to think about the wider situation. Does that make sense? Anyway, I think that's what you're describing, the moment to moment struggle to get to the next moment. You know? So you're in Magdeburg for those months, and then, as I understand it, you were taken back briefly. Do I have that right? To Buchenwald. That was a short time, and then from Buchenwald to Belsen, which is Ken Walzer knows about that transport. Yeah.
Bergen-Belsen was a bad place.
Yeah.
Was
Can you tell us
very
a little bit about how Belsen was like, not like, maybe worse than even Magdeburg was? What was it about Belsen that made it so horrible? Why was Belsen so bad?
Yeah, why was Belsen so bad?
Bergen-Belsen is, they didn't feed us. We were starving.
Nothing.
No food, no water. And when I was liberated, I was just skin and bone, that's all.
Right.
And the stomach was all shriveled up.
Yeah.
The British saved my life.
Yeah.
The doctors, they fed me just very little at a time because the stomach was all shriveled up.
Yeah.
Some people, they grabbed and eat too fast and they died after that.
Because too much, too soon.
Yeah, the
Destroyed
stomach
the system.
couldn't handle it because it was all shriveled up.
Yeah.
The British, they give us a liquid diet and little at a time. We started recuperating.
So I'm wondering, and I'm thinking some of the students may also, so you're in Belsen for several weeks, yes? How long were you in Belsen?
A few weeks.
A few weeks. So if you have no food, if you have no water, how do you survive for a few weeks in Belsen?
It's a miracle. It's a miracle that I survived. A British soldier that saved my life.
Yeah.
Because I was holding on to the bed,
Right.
and I was all covered with lice. The lice were all over me.
In Belsen.
And I just waved like that. The British soldier passed, and he looked back and he saw me.
Right.
And there's a chap there. There's a chap. And he picked me up under his arm. He took me in the front, and they used some powder to sanitize me.
Yeah.
Mr. Kappel, we have a very good question from Julia Nino. She asks, were you afraid of the possibility of the world not knowing your story?
Were you afraid that people wouldn't know your story? That what happened there?
I didn't, I was thinking of being survived.
Yeah.
So that's all.
There's a lot of people that say that this never happened. What do you say to them?
Yeah.
That's tough. That's their problem.
Yeah. If I, and I don't want to, you know, this is not what Ernest is saying, this is what Hank is saying. To me, this denial is the same thing as just part of the Holocaust, right? It's Holocaust denial when they said, you're going to get on a train and go to a place to work. It's denial when they say, we're going to give you soup. It's denial when they say, we're going to give you something to eat. Yeah. The whole Holocaust was Holocaust denial. Yeah. So denying after is really an extension, yes, of the same essential thing. Yeah. It's more Holocaust without being killed actively in the same numbers. Same thing. Yeah? So we come to liberation. That memory of the British soldier, which I know you've told me before.
He's
obviously
alive.
Yes.
If he would have kept on going, he wouldn't have looked back to see me wave. I was waving like this, and he saw me. He says, "There's a chap. There's a chap."
Right.
He picked me up under his arm.
Right.
He carried me under his arm in the front, and that's where they used some powder.
Right.
The lice.
Yeah.
They were vicious. They were eating me up alive.
So sounds like, had he not picked you up, had he not seen you,
I wouldn't.
you probably would not have. You wouldn't have made it.
Would end of me.
Yeah.
Because
So at least
I couldn't actually stand on my feet because I was holding on. I was holding on to the bed.
Yeah.
Was there. I was covered with lice.
He was one of those skeletons, the human.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And if
it's a miracle. It's a miracle that I survived.
Yeah. And that answers our question from Paulina, who precisely asked if you could describe the details of the day you were liberated.
Can you describe the day that you were liberated? I think
what was it?
It was the 15th of April.
Oh, the date.
No.
Do
you remember? I mean, I realize, you were starved. You were already.
I was starved. I was starved.
You were.
I couldn't stand on my feet. I was holding on.
So
bad.
Yeah.
And I was covered with lice.
Did you know?
All over my body.
When this guy picked you up and brought you to care.
Yeah, he says there's a chap. There's a chap there.
Were you able to know at that point that it was over, that you were free at that point?
When he passed by me, I it's the end of me.
But did you know that he came and he put you under his arm? Did you realize that that was the end of it? That you were free?
I was saved. I figured that I'm safe now.
You knew it. You knew it at that moment.
I remember that British guy. He had one of those what they call
berets.
Yeah. And then he looked back and he saw me wave like this here. There's a chap there, and he grabbed me under his arm. He took me in the and they with powder they sanitized me.
How long did it take? And I realize, how can you remember? But in terms of general, when did you start to feel like a living person in a fuller way? How long did before you started to feel
when
at liberation? Once you were being fed, once you were being taken care of in a way you hadn't known for a long time. When did you begin to?
Where they washed me up
Yeah,
with a hand shower,
right.
and there was German nurses.
German nurses.
And I noticed that the nurse looked up, she says, Gottes Willen. Gottes Willen means God's willing.
Right.
So I figured God's will. God had nothing to do with it.
Excuse my cynicism, but I wish they'd thought that a little earlier. But anyway, that's to appeal to something. But anyway, so you're regaining some weight, you're regaining some rest. I know you contracted.
The British doctors,
Yeah.
they were excellent. They put me on a strict diet,
Right.
a little liquid, and then gradually I put some weight on.
Yeah.
And they gave me vitamins and stuff.
Yeah.
So
So
the British soldiers, the doctors, they were very good.
yeah. So is it fair within a few weeks did you start to feel the beginning of feeling alive and strong?
Within a few weeks, and
few weeks?
I was sent to Sweden.
Yeah.
How long after you were liberated did you go to Sweden?
This week.
No, just a few weeks after I was liberated. And in Sweden, I recuperated.
Yeah. Students may not know that Sweden was a place that, although they were neutral during the war, which is a complex history.
That's why they did that.
Yeah.
During the war, they didn't. As a matter of fact, during
Right.
the war, they were making money because they were
Good.
sending all
Steel.
material, steel, Germany.
Selling steel to Nazi Germany, yes. And they were very good with helping people recover, from what I've heard. I think they were good at recovery, meaning for people like you who had gone through, had somehow survived. I've heard generally very positive stories of the ways the Swedes, the Red Cross really in Sweden, helped people once they got to Sweden to recover. Did you have a good experience in Sweden?
In Sweden,
Yeah.
I got a job there and I was working.
Yeah.
And then I was under 18 years old, and they told me that from the Jewish committee, it was called Mosaiska Versamling, and
Right.
they told me if I want to go to Canada under 18 years old, I'd be able to go to Canada.
Right.
So I had to have a picture of my lungs and
X-ray.
urine proof.
Right.
So I had to be healthy enough to go to Sweden.
Right.
So I passed the test.
Yeah.
I went to Sweden.
Yeah.
I went to Canada from Sweden.
Okay, to Canada for 10 years or so.
Sweden, I was 3 years in Sweden.
Yeah. Yeah. At that time, did you know at liberation or the first, did you know what happened, or did you already know what happened to your family? I know that you learned that one sister survived.
Yeah, I learned from them when I was in Lübeck from Germany.
Still in Germany.
They sent me to Sweden.
Right.
In Lübeck, there was a committee from World Jewish Congress.
Right.
And he asked me questions about my family, and I told him. And my sister was living in Israel, in Romania at that time.
In Romania.
So I got a a telegram that my sister is living in Romania.
Did you already know that the rest of your family was gone? Did you already know that because of what you knew about Auschwitz?
I just had one sister that
Right.
was alive.
Right. Was that a surprise? Go ahead.
Sorry. How long did it take for you to be reunited with your sister?
Pardon?
How long did it take for you to be reunited with your sister?
How long? Not too long, because in the Lübeck, from the World Jewish Congress, there was an officer there that asked me questions, and I told him that where I live, and they inquired about, and they found out, and they told me that I had a sister left.
Yeah. That's when you learned in Lübeck about your sister. So we have, if we have time, there are a series of questions, wonderful questions, I have to say, that came from the students about how you view things sort of in general, in a way, about the meanings and the reflections about what you went through. And so I'm going to ask some of these. Some we talked a little bit about. Did you, at the end or during, did you feel outrage? Did you feel at least fantasies of revenge, of fighting back, of getting at some point of taking some kind of vengeance against those who were persecuting and worse, killing your people?
The law has to take care of that.
Okay.
If I do any revenge, that's it's not a proper thing to do.
Indeed. And you knew that?
The law has to take care of it.
Yeah. Many survivors with whom I've spoken have said they would agree with you, but they also remember, some though, that during the time they fantasized, like your fantasy with the birds, that they fantasized that someday maybe they could fight back, not just fight, but take some revenge, just as a fantasy. Not that they would do it, but
what good is that? It's the law. The law has to take care of it.
Okay. So not even a fantasy.
Yeah.
So given what we now know historically, do you think the law did take care of it?
Do you think the law took care of it, though? Do you think
Was there anything like justice? Can there be justice after genocide?
Yeah. They brought Eichmann to justice.
One guy.
Eichmann.
Big guy.
They could have shot him right there in Argentina.
True.
They could have done that.
Yeah.
They didn't. They took him to Israel, and he got a fair trial.
Indeed.
Yeah, they could have the same thing. They got that.
Mengele is dead already.
Mengele.
He was.
Mengele.
They found his body, right? He was in Argentina.
Mengele. They were after him, but they captured him and take him to get justice.
Yeah.
But they shot him because they knew where he was.
Yeah.
But they wanted to bring him to justice.
Is justice meaningful? It's too abstract, probably. Is after you kill so many people, after genocide, can we even think about justice? Does that make any sense? Do you know?
You know what Simon Wiesenthal said?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He said that he wants everybody to have a trial, and when he's going to die in heaven, they're going to ask him, what did he do to save your people?
Yeah.
So he would tell them that I brought to justice.
Yeah, indeed. Over the years, did you hear or know of any of the perpetrators, any of the killers who expressed remorse, who expressed guilt? in a way that convinced you that it was genuine remorse?
They didn't feel guilty. There's a lot of them now that they say that they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't finish the job.
Yeah. Yeah, they might say it was bad, but it wasn't me, right? It was bad, but I was fine. It was those other people, right? That's not uncommon.
And I'm sorry, but in that sense, we have a question, an interesting question that wonders, do you think the Germans were conscious about what they were doing, or they were just following orders?
Good question.
I didn't understand that. What did you say?
If they were conscious, if they were like Mr. Kappel, if they were purposely doing it, or if they were just following orders.
Were they just,
Eichmann said that. Eichmann said he was following the orders, but he did it for a reason. Actually, the Hungarians, he double-crossed them. The Hungarian Jews, they gave him money to save some of them, and then he double-crossed them, and he took the money and he took the people too.
Of the guards whom you knew directly, did they do what they did in general with enthusiasm? Were they enjoying being persecutors? Did some resist? Did some seem like robots? Was there?
They were the ones that they were hating. They were hating the Jews.
You could feel that hate.
They were hating. And then they had, like Eichmann, he said he listened to the Führer. The Führer.
Yeah.
did any of the guards ever show compassion?
They didn't know.
No.
No. No.
And no compassion.
Yeah. Indeed. Indeed. You know, we need to know that.
Hate is a terrible thing. It's
Poison.
Mhm.
Poisons
I
the object and poisons the
have a
person.
cure for hate.
I guess that's why Dad lived so long.
Because
he doesn't-
you were immune, yes, to hate. I mean, in a way, it doesn't sound like it was part of you. It probably was never part of you, which is it's a good thing, obviously. So again, this is now after the years after liberation. Did you speak about your memories of the war, of the experiences? Did you talk with your family? Did you talk with other people? Did you talk with other survivors?
It's a sad thing, and I didn't even want to talk about it because it's very sad.
Yeah.
It's something.
Yeah.
talked about it when I was growing up.
Did not. How about what sometimes, did you talk with other survivors at all about your experiences, their experiences?
So everybody, they have different stories.
Right.
I have, I don't know if you heard of Dr. Silo. Dr. Silo is.
Oh yeah, Charlie. Yeah, we're good friends.
He's a
Yeah.
psychologist.
Yeah, he and I.
Dr. Silo.
Yeah, we've.
So
Yeah.
he took my interview. Okay?
Yeah.
He interviewed about maybe 500-600 people.
Yeah.
Dr.
Charlie
Silo.
and I. Charlie and I go. Right, we've known each other since.
Every Monday,
so-
Dad has a,
Oh, the
We
group.
have a meeting on Mondays.
Yeah.
And,
So when you see Charlie, say Hank says hello. That's
I'll text him now.
yeah.
Mr. Kappel, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm just playing
We have a question from Liam Hanley, and he's asking, when did you decide to speak about your experiences, and why? Why do you think it's important to talk about this?
why I don't want to talk about it?
Why you want to talk about it?
Why do you want to talk about this now? Why are you
Right.
willing to talk about
Yes.
it now?
Why, if I have to ask, I want to ask the questions.
Hmm.
You want to answer the questions, right?
Yes.
Answer the questions. Why? Does it help you? Does it help those who are asking the questions? For you, what's important?
Doesn't make me feel any better, and
Yeah.
anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, as you think now, we have, I think, over 200, mostly young people who are listening.
Well, I feel that people should know about what happened. It's
Yeah.
part of history. So it's okay to tell them what the truth
So they know.
happened. Because some people, they say, oh, it's just a story.
Yeah. Indeed. Indeed.
Ernie, we've actually had close to 300 people here today. Again, most of whom are young people that will take this for a long time. I actually wonder if I could ask my high school classmate, Ruth, Mr. Kappel's daughter, how did your father's experience, how has that affected your life and who you've come to be?
How has it affected my life?
Yeah, I mean, what lessons have you taken, or how has that changed who you are, knowing what your father has been through?
It's a really complicated question.
Mm-hmm.
It was really difficult growing up. My dad never talked about it, and I never knew what he went through. As a matter of fact, I remember having a conversation with one of my childhood friends growing up, and she was saying that her dad was a pilot, and I thought my dad was fighting for the Germans. I had no idea. And I mean, forgive me, Dad, for saying this, but when I was growing up, I wanted a dad like everybody else. I wanted another dad.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really grateful.
You know, I was occupied when I got married, working hard, and I'm sorry that I couldn't spend too much time with my family. And whenever I got a couple of weeks off, my wife and we went for vacation.
Mm.
I didn't have much time to spend with my kids.
No.
I loved my kids.
Yeah.
And I had a dog. The dog was furious. As soon as I walked in the house, he was jumping on me, and he was jumping all over. He was very happy to see me.
Yeah.
Part of the family, you know.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the time. It's taken a long time, but Dad and I have a very special relationship, and I'm just very grateful that I have the opportunity to know him and he knows me, and there's no anger anymore. There was a lot of anger and walking on eggshells when we were growing up, but that's gone.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
We should all forgive each other.
We should, if we can.
Yes.
Not so easy.
I'm sorry
Yeah.
I didn't have much time to spend
You
with my
don't need to be
family.
sorry.
But you
Because-
are now.
I was working most of the time.
Yeah.
You're wonderful.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. I think they're lucky. But I understand. You know, I think a friend that we both have, who unfortunately is no longer, Abe Pasternak, who in his unique way used to say, I say him slightly, I come to a beautiful country, the United States of America, and we have to survive again. That's what Abe said, because you had to work, work. And obviously he would say, not the same, of course not the same. But it was, you're on your own in many ways.
Yeah.
And many survivors.
Pasternak, he was in the same business that I was.
Tires. Yeah.
You know, he was lucky.
Yeah.
I was held up a few times, you know, in the meat business, and they pointed the gun right at me, and then I heard the gun click one time. My wife says, "Get out of there, get out of that business." And I got the job for farmer checks, and I get that business because I was held up a few times, and I was afraid that my wife told me that I want you to stay alive. I don't want to get shot. There is like in business that get shot that I know.
Crazy. Yeah. Crazy.
So I'm glad that I got a job at Farmer Jack's then.
Good.
Because when I went to work, I didn't know whether I'm going to come back alive or not, because it was rough neighborhood.
Crazy. Just looking at Robert, do we have a little more time?
I was just actually texting you to say that it's about 3:45.
Yeah.
I could listen to this man all day, and I also don't want to dominate his. It's exhausting, I'm sure, too. So I would leave that to you and Mr. Kappel when you feel like it's an appropriate stopping point. There might have been a couple more questions.
Yeah, maybe, Ariana, if you see some from the students who you think really we should try, if it's okay with Ernest, can we go a couple more?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
If I could mention too, I don't know if Ernie saw this, but somebody named Michelle, and I'm not sure if this is one of our students. If I could read this to you though.
Please.
She said, "I find it very brave to be able to speak out about your experience. My grandfather was also Jewish and escaped from Germany, but he never had the courage to speak in German or tell us about any of the things he had been through." So I feel for Michelle, this is probably a very meaningful experience personally to hear you know, you're her grandfather speaking out in some ways.
Yeah. There's a lot of Germans that they were very loyal to their country. As a matter of fact, my father, may he rest in peace, he was serving in the Austro-Hungarian army. It's the
World War I.
and he had a rank. I don't know what the rank was. He showed me he had some two whatever golden things. And at that time, they didn't have the communication like now for the satellites, and they had telegraph. They were carrying the wires with them, and they did communicate with the telegraph. And as soon as they cut off the line, there was it. No more communication. And he was captured by the Russians. And the Russians, he just treated them very good there when he was captured, because he was an officer. And I remember he showed me a golden watch he brought from Russia. Yeah.
Interesting. You know, not everyone has to speak, right? And of course, we respect people who can't or choose not to. Luckily, there are also many now, not early, but who do, and you're one. So, you know, we have to respect all those choices, I think, and be grateful.
You know that the German Jews, they were loyal to their country, but Hitler, you know, he had to have a scapegoat. So to get him to get famous, you know, he had to use a scapegoat. So the Jews were the scapegoats, and he made himself a big name.
Yeah, indeed.
That's how he got to power.
Yeah, and as we know, He's not the only one who used that strategy in the world and in history. Unfortunately, it's a strategy that has been used many times and still today by some. So if I may, I have one other, I know there were a number of questions that the students raised about religion and about faith. And I wanted to ask you, and this is probably complicated. It is for many people I know, but how did all of this for you, Ernest, affect your faith? Did it change it? Some people have told me they were more believing because they survived.
Two things.
Yeah.
Politics and religion, those are out of the questions. I don't.
Not your
Yeah,
bias.
religion and politics, I have nothing to do with it.
Forget about it.
You read my mind, Mr. Greenspan. I
Smart
was
man.
about to say that.
Yeah, because I know a lot of students want to know, and my students have always wanted to know that too. That's a common, I mean, for obvious reasons, right? You go through hell, and so what do you believe in? What's left? What can you rely on? What can you trust?
Everybody, they got their faith. There is Hindus,
Right.
there is Christians, there
Right.
is Jews, there is, everybody got their own religion.
Yeah.
To each his own.
We just respect
Whatever
that.
they wanna be.
My dad goes to shul every Friday, Saturday when he can, but he doesn't consider himself religious.
So
I belong to a group.
yeah.
That's what I. But there's
May I ask, is that because it feels familiar? Because it feels like home? Because it's part of your own history and tradition? You know, whether or not you believe or what you believe, because it's
tradition.
Yeah,
Tradition.
Yeah. Yeah, which makes full sense. How about faith in excuse me, humanity, faith in people? You know, not in God necessarily, but faith in human beings. After seeing the worst, do you think?
I think that human beings, they should be act like human beings.
Indeed. How does that happen? If we knew that answer, if we knew that answer, we would be in great shape.
That's what they call them, human beings, because they're humane to each other.
Otherwise, we'd just be a bunch of beings, right?
Yeah.
Just beings floating around, which it sometimes seems. Anyway, but how we get there, none of us, I don't think, have that answer. We do what we can do.
To be a good human being, you have to be to love one each other.
Indeed.
Love is an important thing.
Yes, and Mr. Kappel, allow me to ask you probably one of the last questions, but what do you want us to leave with today? Like, what is your message? What lesson do you want us to leave with?
What question, what do you want to say to everybody? What do you want people to leave with? You always say love, you know, what people should be good.
Three things: love, communicate, and accommodate.
So he says that all the time.
Love, communicate, accommodate.
Love, communication, and accommodation.
Does accommodate mean be willing to compromise? I see a thumbs up for that.
Yeah.
It means listening to other people, trying to find a compromise, trying to find a way that makes the most people heard, satisfied even.
Yeah.
Is that what accommodate means?
Yeah. Accommodation, do you mean people should be
to sort out the things.
To sort it out,
Yeah.
not just Right.
You know, they say there is two people, two brothers, they went to a rabbi, and they had their difference. So they told the rabbi their difference, what they have. So the first brother told the rabbi about his stuff. So the rabbi says, you're right. So the other one told the rabbi his own story. He says, you're right. He says, but how is it possible that you told him that he's right and you told me that I'm right? So you're both right. The rabbi says, you're both right.
Right. Not too many rabbis like that. Sorry for that. Some, anyway, some of all of us. So that's probably, with that blessing for all of us, that's probably a good place to finish for today. Feel right?
Yeah, Mr. Kappel, Ruth, this was really beautiful. This was, I know there was a tremendous amount of excitement and honestly even some fear among students, because this is not something people like to think about, but they need to know about it because we still have a world out there that needs to know.
It's
from
part
people
of
like this.
history. Something that happened. Yeah, this is part of history.
Yeah.
It is.
It's who we are. It's who we are. Part of who we are. Not all of who we are, but part of who we are. We need to know that, or else we don't know who we are. So.
And we can
Well,
make it
on
better,
behalf
Mr. Kappel.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
On
Thanks.
behalf of our community, Mr. Kappel.
It's my pleasure.
It
My
was
pleasure.
an honor, Mr. Kappel.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
That was incredible.
And thank
You're all a nice group. Thank
We'll be in
you.
touch.
you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
All right.
And to everybody. Peace, power, health, love.
Be good to each other,
Humans
everybody.
being. Yeah? Onward. Okay.
And just so
Love.
everybody
All right.
knows, Mr.
Love it.
Kappel, we have been recording this and we'll make sure that you get a video recording of this. You can share with friends or family members or leave behind to your great, 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 great grandchildren, as it were. I don't think you know them yet,
Thank you
but
very much.
they're coming.
It's my pleasure.
God willing, right?
It's my pleasure.
My
Thank you.
daughter's on the line, so listen up.
She's listening to-
Way to put her on the spot.
OMG, Mom.
Oh my God!
Okay.
Can you put her?
All
Can
right.
you put a camera on?
We're just-
You know, Ruth and Ernie and Hank, one of the things that I think most remarkable is that we still have 180 people here. And until we said our goodbyes, there were still like 240. And I will tell you from 20 years of teaching, keeping teenagers engaged in words that people
Thank
are
you very
saying for
much.
90 minutes,
Thank you.
it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen very often. And you've clearly captivated people here because they're still here.
Oh, thank you.
You have.
I'm very
Okay.
grateful. I'm very grateful for you all. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
We're very grateful for your time. Thank you.
And
Thank
we
you.
will be in touch with you. We'd like to come up with some kind of a formal thing from the people watching this, just to say thank you in a more formal way. I'm not sure how to do that, but we're working on it. And
Well, we want to say thank you to you.
Thank you.
Indeed.
yeah, this
Indeed.
was neat. Great.
Indeed. Really.
Yeah.
And the
Well-
great questions, as I've said. So, yeah.
All right.
There were so many. I'm glad we answered the most we could, but
Well, yeah.
thank you everyone for participating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Lovely job, Ariana, and sifting through them as much as you could. So nice
Thank you.
facilitating and and for making space for Mr. Kappel's story with the questions, and Hank as well. So, yes.
Just to let
Okay.
everyone know, I'm copying and pasting Mr. Kappel's biography along with Mr. Greenspan's biography, so you can click on those links and read more about them on your free time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Well-
you, Mr. Ziegler. You've done a wonderful
Yeah, this
job.
has been awesome.
Thank you, Ariana.
Yes.
It's a real treat.
Now, Robert,
Thank you.
Ariana, Ernest, Ruth, Jessica,
Great.
Right here.
Well,
and Hudson. Thank you.
I guess
Thank
rather
you.
than sit here and stare awkwardly at each other for a while, I will press the end button on this to
All
thank
right.
everybody.
And then we
As
will-
always,
Bye.
we will
we'll be
proof.
back in touch with each other as well about this with some follow-up and everything. So,
We will proof. Okay.
Peace
splendid.
out, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
everybody.
much.
You're well.
Bye.
You're well.
Bye.